Hey kids, comics. Silver-haired Bronze Age babe here, yakking about her comic book collection, and today, an episode of Women's Libbers from Earth. Um, I have done some research lately on the women's lib movement of the late 60s and early 70s. I have a series called Women's Libbers from Space, which talks about how the comic book industry dealt with that social movement, but only in the superhero world. Recently, I've been investigating how romance comics dealt with the women's movement, and I have found some really wonderful examples of how romance books worked that into their storylines. This is an issue of Falling in Love, number 121. It's from February of 1971. And I do want to start by talking about this cover. I think it's really wonderful. I think it's beautifully elegant and of its time. I think the design aspect, the drawing is fantastic. The color design on it, it's very sleek and very chic. And I really, really like it. And then we're going to read the story. Love me tonight, forget me tomorrow. The story is about young lovers Alice and Bob. And Bob is dropping Alice off after a date, and they start to fight about splitting the bill for their date. And she's, adding things up and saying, okay, I owe you $16.45, so that's my share. And Bob says, honey, can't I take you out just for once? Come on, do it for me. And she's like, no. And then, as is typical of the comic book world when talking about second wave feminism, a lot of bumper sticker kind of statements come out of the mouths of women. Women's inferiority is the product of a social system that has produced innumerable inequities, degradations, and discriminations. Like, do people really talk that way? I mean, yes, but the age of children, church, and kitchen went out years ago. Women are liberated. The revolution is here. You better believe it. And we've come a long way, baby. That is all just coming out of her mouth. And so he's, tired of being yelled at and kind of stalks off. Then she has a really sad conversation with her mother, where basically says, she basically tells her mother, look what happened to you. Women in our society aren't merely sex objects brought up to be married off and subjected to the whims of husbands. Look what happened to you. And the mother's like, well, all right, I could have had a career, but I married your father, then you came along, and then you became my career. I can't say I'm sorry, So there's your two sides of the coin. Now, as in all romance comics, at some point our heroines are always lying in bed crying. And she's not exactly weeping in this situation, but boy, she's just not getting her rest. And she's, dreaming of, she and Bob in nicer days before, she got her consciousness raised. She goes back to work, and that's where you find out that she and Bob actually work together at a magazine. And she has been called to the boss's office. And her boyfriend Bob says, well, your pantsuit is very appropriate. It shows him your equality. So it's like, God's sakes. So she goes into the boss's office and says, hope I haven't been keeping you waiting, Mr. Russell. And he says, Alice, yes, you have, for a number of years. And then he goes on to explain that, surprising as it is to him, let me say, my dear, I always thought in this business being a woman, a girl, I should say, was a handicap. But you expected discrimination. And she says, oh, I never minded it. He says you didn't take advantage of your sex or use feminine wiles. You competed with men on their own grounds, blah, blah, blah. Basically, he's going to promote her to be editor-in-chief. So, yay. And he's going to stay on as publisher, and wow, how exciting. She goes out of that office, and Bob finds her and says, I guess congratulations are in order. You must feel pretty proud getting what you were always after. She says, it wasn't easy, hard work, obstacles to overcome. And he says, like me, was I an obstacle? And then he's really snotty to her and says, well, good luck, boss lady. Yeah, way to be supportive. Thanks, buddy. So next day at the board meeting, when he's going to, the boss man is going to announce her promotion, she says, thank you, but no, I cannot accept. Because no one is more deserving of this than, wait for it, Bob. I wanted it just desperately, but then I got it. I learned that something was more important. I had to choose. Did you? Really? And then Bob, they try and save Bob here because he says, but honey, Russell offered it to me first. But it seemed so important to you. You wanted it so badly for so long to prove your superiority. I refused. I don't know. It kind of gives me a fine line headache. Kind of thinking how this machination went on in terms of, yeah, that all makes sense, because it really doesn't. So nasty guy Bob gets his promotion, and he gets the gal, and they get to make out in front of the board of directors of the publishing company. So there you have it. There's a story from 1971, Women's Libbers of Earth. Thanks so much for stopping by. I'll see you again next time.